And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, December 22nd. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. And for right now, we have a 6-game NBA slate on our hands. But buckle up, that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Before we do anything at all, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did your Tuesday shake out?
Not great. Just, normal Tuesday. Ended up not getting to a lot of the Knicks. Ended up playing a ton of the Minnesota and Dallas game. That game was fine, but some of the pieces didn't work out. Most of the Knicks did enough to, kind of hurt me too. So, felt pretty good about how I played it, but just didn't work out.
Fair enough. I haven't been playing now that I have my family in town, so I've been keeping it at arm's length. I'm pretty sure that we're going to just be in for the night tonight. So I think I'm attacking this one, and boy, oh boy, I'm going to feel attacked by playing this slate because there are some absolute landmines that we need to work our way through. I think we're going to need either a lot of time to try to break down some of this stuff or basically no time because it's a crapshoot. So let's just dive into it right now. You ready?
Yep.
All right. We're starting with part of the crapshoot, the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic are 8.5-point underdogs in Atlanta. Starting with the Orlando side, we have no Jalen Suggs, no Mo Bamba, no Terrence Ross, no John Isaac, no Markelle Fultz, no RJ Hampton, no Mo Wagner, no Michael Carter-Williams, no Eton Moore, no Iggy Brazdeikis, and as of 2 minutes ago, no Michael Mulder. Yeah. Even more importantly, though, questionable tags on Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter Jr. At least this is the first game of the day, but those Q tags are real for right now. Cole Anthony has been out, injured ankle. Wendell Carter missed the last game and left early from the game previous. So for right now, I have those two guys in. Who stands out most to you from Orlando?
Yeah, I have them in right now too. If they are, then not a whole lot. Like Robin Lopez, if he starts at 4,600 would look decent, but Cole Anthony's up to 9,100, Wendell Carter Jr. is up to 8,700. So they're both expensive, and if they're in, they're taking minutes away from a lot of these fringe guys. So they still have bodies. They signed like half the G League the other day. So it's not a situation where they're super shorthanded necessarily. If they are without Anthony and Carter, then that kind of becomes the case. But if those guys are in, I don't really see a lot here to like.
Yeah, very different on FanDuel today. So Cole Anthony, 9,100 on DraftKings. He is 7,400 on FanDuel. Wendell Carter Jr., 8,700 on DraftKings. He is 7,100 on FanDuel. I think Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter Jr., if in, look pretty good in those spots. I'm happy to get to any shares of Wagner, Okeke, Harris, because I think those are the guys that are going to play the 30-plus minutes if this breaks correctly. What's going to happen for you to get to Hassani, Gravett, Aleem Ford, BJ Johnson, and whoever the hell replaces Michael Mulder?
Misclits?
That'll work. If Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter Jr. happen to be out, sort of like everybody is mildly interesting for Orlando at that point, right? It's like by default.
Yeah, you didn't have them last game. Robin Lopez played 38 minutes. You got 30 minutes from Michael Mulder, which are gone. So like you had Hassani Gravett like 25 minutes. He could certainly play more. BJ Johnson could certainly play more. Okeke played 35 minutes. Franz Wagner only played 28 and a half. I would fully expect him to play another like 10 minutes, kind of one way or the other, but especially if Anthony and Carter are out. So if those guys are out, like there's more usage to go around, but there's also just a lot more minutes for what end up being relatively inexpensive guys.
And I do want to note, evidently they have signed Tim Frazier and Freddie Gillespie.
Who?
I think.
Which team did you say?
Orlando.
Oh, okay.
With no Michael Mulder, like if Cole Anthony happens to be out, I think Tim Frazier is going to play a lot.
Certainly could. Last game you got, like we said, the 30 minutes from Mulder. Harris played 36, so it's not like he's really going to get more. Gravett certainly could get more, but he was already at 25, so you can't go that much higher.
Yeah. And they don't really have a ton of other guard options that are going to be able to be actual point guards in this spot. So if Anthony ends up out, now that we lost Mulder, Keep an eye on Tim Frazier. It's possible that he has to get added to the player pool. Let me look and see if he's available. A lot of guys aren't right now. All right, Tim Frazier is available on Yahoo, flat minimum on DraftKings, not available on FanDuel at this particular moment. We'll see where we end up there. This is one of the trickier spots, but again, it's a 7:30 start. We're going to know what we need to know for Orlando before lock. That's helpful. Anything else here for the Magic?
Nope.
Yeah, okay. Atlanta is a little bit more interesting because we can actually talk about these guys. Trae Young, out. Clint Capella, out. We still don't have DeAndre Hunter. Gallo, also out. Q-tag on TLC, the most interesting piece, Bogdanovic is probable now. The Hawks have signed Lance Stevenson and Malcolm Hill. They have a couple G League options as well. So let's start with the obvious. Jon Collins, I think, looks exceptional. 7,400 on FanDuel, 7,300 on DraftKings. You should get him a bit more at the 5 in this spot. Doesn't necessarily have to be just all at the 5, but should get a bit more run at the 5. I think he looks great. He's 30% owned across both sites. Delon Wright is looking like the first guy up in Trae Young's place. 4,700 on FanDuel, 4,600 on DraftKings, also pulling about 30% ownership. I think Herter and Bogdanovic and Reddish all look interesting. Cam Reddish being projected for 2% ownership on FanDuel to me is insane given the current status of this team, but we could talk through it. Do you have anything specific you want to mention with regards to Collins?
So he's played a total of 392 minutes since the start of last season without either one of Young or Capella on the floor. He's averaged 1.22 DraftKings points per minute, 27% usage rate, 16.4% rebounding percentage. Obviously, he's still going to play, or you would assume, he's still going to play some minutes alongside a center, whether it's a Kongwu or Gorgie Jang. But the usage rate being up should just be the case for pretty much the entire time he's on the floor. The potential for more rebounds, I expect him to get at least some run at the 5 as well. So it just makes him look really, really good and just look like a definite priority at 7,300.
Do you think Delon Wright is the starter in this spot over Lou Will?
Yeah, just based on what we've seen from Atlanta recently.
Yeah, I agree. And 4,700 or 4,600 looks great too. Made some soup before I started the show. God, that's delicious. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I think Collins and Delon Wright are two of the best plays of the day in any game. Definitely guys you want to focus on. Let's hash out the rest of this. So we know what we're getting out of Kevin Herter. He's just going to play the same minutes or more that he normally plays. I don't think it really changes all that much. Maybe an extra shot or two. But do you have any specific thoughts on Herter?
680 minutes without Young or Capella since last year, 0.82 DraftKings points per minute. If you don't worry about Capella, since he's not going to really affect usage, you get 1,138 minutes without Trae Young, 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. So still basically just, a bunch of minutes, decent production for Kevin Herter.
This is going to be fun. You ready? Our boy in chat that has no sense, Jeremy Savage, thinking that it was obvious that you shouldn't have played Alec Burks yesterday. Alec Burks played 41 minutes against the Pistons. Adam, if you projected Alec Burks for 41 minutes, how much would you have had yesterday?
I projected him for 40, and I don't think I had any.
Really? Are you doing this to try to make up for that Lakers bullshit from yesterday?
No, he was 7,600 on DraftKings.
Was he owned?
He's 5% owned.
You didn't get to Burks yesterday after that entire conversation we had.
No, I mean, all I was saying in that entire conversation was that his price wasn't laughably high, but that I thought he was overpriced.
I hate you for what you just did to me here. I really do.
No, I mean, I think the highest owned guy I had from the Knicks, I think I had 10% Kemba. And other than that, I was just jamming in the Minnesota game and Dallas game where everybody was out.
I can't even talk about it now.
I just played a bunch of Bronson and Noel and Russell. I played 44% Russell for $200 more than Burks.
What do we do with Bogdanovic? Making his return after being out since November 27th.
Hey, Josh, did you know Alec Burks had a medium projection yesterday? That's why you should take your L.
I don't even know what that means.
Me neither, but I agree you should take your L.
Yeah. I hate you. I got to pull you up on lineup study right now just to make sure you're not lying to me, just to make a point. Talk to me about Bogdanovic. How much is this guy going to be on the floor today? Obviously, you don't know that, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's been. Hang on. David Porter said, "Wait a minute. You guys were saying Burks was fine at 7,600." Exactly. We were saying that like he wasn't laughably bad. You guys were looking at Alec Burks at 7,600 and acting like it was when Kevin Huerter was 9,800 last year. All we said was like he's going to play 40 minutes. If he was less expensive, he would be massively popular. So the price tag is correct. There were like 100 underpriced guys yesterday. So Alec Burks,
I have no idea what happened after the strategy
still
show
wasn't
yesterday.
Great. Yeah, I don't know. Chat just like completely went on all day yesterday with Alec Burks. Like chat was just like doing their own shit, not listening to anything. So just to clear that up. What was your question about Bogdanovic?
What do we do with him here?
I mean, the minutes are the big question, but he's only 4,700. He's averaged 1.04 DraftKings points per minute without Young since last year in 700 minutes. Even if he plays like 26 minutes, he should look fine. And there's certainly a chance he plays more than that.
By the way, you played 2% Burks in the fadeaway. I will say we had him projected for 14% ownership. He came in at 6. He probably would have had like 6 if
that's
numbers.
probably true.
Okay, so I feel a little bit better there. Had I known that he was projected for 14, I wouldn't have been shocked that you didn't have any. Anyway.
Yeah, Burks is just like a completely neutral play. Like there were like 100 good plays yesterday, and Burks was just like correctly priced.
4,500 on FanDuel for Reddish, 3,700 on DraftKings. Is he the guy that should be like sneaky most interesting here? No Gallo, no Trae Young, no Clint Capella. Like,
yeah, I mean, at low ownership, it's pretty appealing because like it's somebody that can defend multiple positions. He can play a lot of minutes. You know, it's not like he has to replace one specific guy. He's averaged 0.9 DraftKings points per minute without Young on the floor since last year. So at relatively low ownership, it looks pretty good.
I'm surprised to see it. I think it comes up. I think it definitely comes up on FanDuel. Like he hasn't been a great per minute guy, but I mean, we're talking about taking out what 30, 60, like 85, 90 minutes from this lineup. Like Reddish has to play event. Like if he's not going to get 28 or more here, he never is. TLC is going to ruin some things if he happens to be in. I'm interested in the big wild card here. What do we do with Lou Will? Because there's no reason he doesn't play. Like he could just play a ton.
Yeah, he could. I mean, we've kind of seen him fall behind Wright in the rotation, it seems like, but 0.91 DraftKings points per minute since last year without Young on the floor, 25% usage rate, 901 minutes played. It's a spot where, I think it's my best guess is that he gets like 20-ish minutes, maybe a couple more, and doesn't really look that useful. But it's definitely a spot where I think you pay attention to ownership because we haven't seen Atlanta's rotations under these conditions yet. And this is kind of the thing that I've been talking about a lot recently, where it makes your strategy in NBA DFS a little bit different, I think, because normally when you think about NBA DFS, you're just thinking about stuff that's really projectable and we know what's going to happen. And most of the variance and volatility is in performance. Whereas now in cases like this, we can guess, make educated guesses at what Atlanta's rotation is going to look like, but we haven't seen this play out. If they just say, for one reason or another, without Trae Young, we want Lou Williams to play 26 minutes. We're not going to know that until after the game. So it's just a situation where paying attention to good point per minute players that are likely to not play enough to be super useful, but that you shouldn't be that confident in that assumption. They become kind of just, appealing options in larger field tournaments.
Final guy that I think we could touch on here, because I don't think that we could expect Okongwu to play enough in this one, still working his way back from injury and all. Any thoughts on Gorgeous Dong, 3,100 center?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much Okongwu plays. He did play 14 minutes last game. He got some garbage time runs. So, I mean, I would think you might get like 22, 24 from Okongwu, which would probably mean
that would surprise me.
Would it? And they said he was limited last game. I don't really know what the limit was.
He's just not at a position where they need to run him out a ton,
Yeah, I mean, they could. Basically, what I was going to get at was unless he starts, I don't think Jang plays a lot.
Okay.
Like, I think you just get Collins mostly. There's no shortage of wings on this team still.
How much do you think Collins plays alongside of Jang or Okongwu?
Half his minutes.
Okay. Because obviously they could just play Jon Collins for 32 minutes at center, and that would be great for us. That's about where I was for the split.
I mean, it wouldn't be surprising at all if Collins starts at center.
Oh, yeah, that's sort of my expectation.
Yeah. If Okongwu,
I assume makes Reddish look better.
So I guess the way I'm going to, if we don't get any quote on like a specific minutes limit for Okongwu, if he starts, I'm going to end up low to mid 20s. If he comes off if Collins starts at center, I'm going to assume Okongwu is the backup and playing like 60 minutes.
Okay. That works.
Which would be like, and also, so it's a situation where it's tricky with Jang, because if Collins starts, it's really tough for Jang because you assume Okongwu is ahead of him. If Okongwu starts, maybe Jang's the backup center, but who knows? If somehow Gorgie Jang starts, then clearly everything changes here. But
right. All righty. Anything else here?
I don't think so.
This is simultaneously an awful game, and it's going to have a ton of exposure in it, and that's just not fun. The Cole Anthony, Wendell Carter Jr. news will be the most important piece. Now, schedule for the rest of the day. That one's easy. We've got the NFL Strategy Show Ownership Edition coming in at 11 a.m. right after this. Jock Market NBA Show at 1 p.m. NFL On the Contrary at 3. The No House Advantage NFL Show at 4. NBA Deeper Dive. Adam will be back for that one at 5:30. And then the NBA Live Before Lock Show from 6:30 to 7:30. NBA ownership projections are free today. That's what you should be looking for. They are very important on stuff like this. Allows you to get comparable plays at lower ownership. So make sure you're checking that out. It's not going to get any better for this conversation. So the Cleveland Cavaliers are 5.5 point underdogs, and they're missing some guys, just a few. We have no Isaac Okoro, no Evan Mobley, no Jared Allen, no Denzel Valentine, no Lamar Stevens, no Dylan Windler, no Ed Davis, no RJ Nembhard. Obviously, Colin Sexton is out injured. They have signed Justin Anderson and the Unicornet, Luke Cornett. On the Boston side, it's kind of just as bad. No Al Horford, no Josh Richardson, no Grant Williams, no Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Jabari Parker, Broderick Thomas, or Sam Hauser, but we did get Time Lord back. I think it's funny that after all the Celtics discussion we had on Monday, the one guy that ended up ruled out was the guy that we never talked about being ruled out. But right. Let's start with Cleveland. Let's start with the chalk piece here. We've got Kevin Love in for like 40-ish% ownership. I don't see it, but I think he's clearly playing more minutes than he normally does.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's likely to play upper 20s in minutes, which I think makes him look really good. As far as the ownership goes, he's 5,700 on DraftKings. I think it's likely that this kind of ends up being like the Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier spot yesterday, where he's very, very clearly a top play. But all of these teams are missing players. So if the field is going to just like jam in a ton of one $5,700 guy, there's naturally going to be lower owned pieces you can get to. So I think it's going to be that kind of spot where Kevin Love looks great. I don't know ownership wise, really where I get to, because he is going to pull a ton of it. And I think he should. But what it comes back to is just that, like, Kevin Love at 5,700, let's say he scores 32 DraftKings points, 34 DraftKings points. Like, that would look good for his salary. But on a slate like this, you really need the raw points. So it's like, if he scores 34, you're not drawing dead if you don't have him. It hurts. But for one reason or another, the games where he scores like 28, you're in a really good situation if you don't have him. So just the fact that you're going to be able to build lineups that have a million other good plays. Typically, when there's that many good plays, I just end up not getting to a whole lot of like the most popular guy.
Yeah, I gave him 28 minutes, and he looks clearly good from a point per dollar perspective, but not 40% good.
Yeah, I think he looks like if he were lower than 40% owned, I would kind of be surprised the way that I'm looking at it.
When
I look at his projection, it just jumps out as like, yeah, this dude's going to get a ton of ownership.
It really all comes down to how many minutes you think Kevin Love is going to play. Right. Like, if you're projecting him for 32, like a normal starter, then I think Kevin Love is a significantly better play. They can go to Cornette. They can call up Taco Fall, I guess. I'm sure he'd love to play in Boston. I gave Love and Cornette a 28-20 split at center. Am I crazy for that?
No, but I think in 28 minutes, he still looks great.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's the second best option on his team behind Chetty at 4,500, shooting guard, small forward.
I'll take him ahead of Chetty.
Really?
Yeah. He's averaging 1.48 DraftKings points per minute without Allen or Mobley on the floor this year.
How many minutes?
113.
Holy shit, really?
26.9% usage rate, 21.5% rebounding percentage, 18.8% assist percentage.
Okay.
Now, granted, like that can come down a little bit usage-wise when you're playing with Garland, but still. The rebounding is the big thing.
For sure. Oh, yeah, he's going to have carte blanche on rebounds for the Cavs.
21.5% rebounding percentage without those guys. This season, his average his rebounding percentage is 18.3%. So, I mean, he's already a good rebounder, but you're getting a bump there. You should get at least some sort of usage bump. But, I mean, I think he looks great.
Okay. I'm going to have to dig into him a little bit because the ownership stands out to me as problematic. But even if I make that 30-18, he's immediately going to be a little bit more interesting. Rates, I'm pretty happy with where I've got him. I liked Chetty, shooting guard, small forward, 4,500. I assume he's starting and playing a ton.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for what it's worth, looking at the boom bust tool right now for DraftKings, 43% ownership coming into Love, 40.5% chance of being in the optimal lineup, 48.9% boom percentage. Just grades out as someone that isn't really going under-owned. Over-owned. Just sort of like where he should be. Chetty, kind of the same boat. 4,500, 17% chance of being in the optimal, 21% ownership percentage, 33% boom percentage. He looks good. Guard forward eligibility is really nice. I assume he's going to play a nice chunk of minutes. He's not the best fantasy producer, but he's not bad. I mean, he's at 0.94 DraftKings points per minute this season without removing anyone from the floor. So he's just going to look like a pretty good value.
Garland, probably not getting to him on DraftKings at 9,700. I think you could probably get a little bit more of Garland on FanDuel where he's 7,200. That's a $2,500 gap between FanDuel and DK on Garland. Can you justify Garland at 9,700?
It's pretty tough just given the fact that I don't know the guys missing really have that big of an impact on Garland. It's not like Mobley's a really high usage guy. Allen's not a really high usage guy. Garland's not most likely not going to go grab a bunch of rebounds. So, like, I think Garland's
it's worse for him.
What'd you say?
I think it's worse for him.
It probably. I mean, Kevin Love's a higher usage guy than anybody he's replacing.
Yeah, and like you're better off having better players out on the floor than Justin Anderson and Kevin Pangos.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, Garland, like he's really good. But I think that's a pretty crazy price tag.
Yeah, we're on the same page here. Markkanen, Rubio, both pulling. Well, Markkanen pulling basically no ownership on DraftKings. Rubio pulling 25%. That's interesting to me. I'd rather get to Markkanen at no ownership than Rubio at 25%. Not that they both look good either way. Dean Wade, 3,800, pulling 13% ownership. I think that's an interesting piece. It's a lot to like here. Well, there's a lot to roster here from Cleveland. I'm not entirely sure there's a lot to like here from Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, I think Love stands out as number one for me. Chetty's number two. Any of the rest of the guys that are, main rotation pieces look fine, but I wouldn't call them priorities.
All righty. Anything else here?
No.
To Boston. This one's a little bit easier. Jason Tatum, 9,900 on FanDuel. 11-1 on DraftKings. Think he looks solid. I think Marcus Smart looks solid across both sites at 5,700. You're not rostering Jaylen Brown at 9,900 on DraftKings with any sort of volume. You probably are on FanDuel where he's 7,500, $2,400 gap here. I don't know what's up with the pricing right now, but there are just some chasms on some of these guys between FanDuel and DK. Schroeder, Time Lord, both guys I'm going to get to. I mean, like the starting five of Boston, if it's Tatum, Smart, Brown, Schroeder, Williams, or something in that area, I'm happy to get to everybody on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I think Brown is the only guy you can't like really try to get to.
Jeremy Savage is still talking about median projections. I don't know. He's still not making sense.
I don't know what that means. You said he had a median. Everybody has a median projection. That's what the projections are.
I said he projected like that he was priced correctly for his median projection, but yeah, everybody has a median projection. That's how they work. Yeah, for Boston, I don't see a ton. Like they're another team that's just been shorthanded for a little bit. So the prices have come up some. I don't particularly want to pay 11-1 for Tatum. I don't really want to pay 9,900 for Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart at 5,700 is probably the first one I would get to. Had a nice, I think I had like 3 times the field on him the other day, just because like he's one of those guys in that price range where I'm not comparing him to Kevin Love, but like players that maybe look a little bit less enticing than Love, but are still getting a lot of ownership. You're still going to get 34, 35 minutes from Marcus Smart. He can run into some stats and end up being a pretty good contrarian play at that price. But there's not much that stands out to me here on DraftKings.
Obviously, the extra positional designation is going to matter here, but Kevin Love at 47% ownership, Robert Williams at 3. I'm just like a little bit more interested in Robert Williams at 3 in the GPP.
Sure.
Let's just I think we're going to see a lot of guys in that mid 5s range that start looking super similar. Anyway, I don't have much else. Boston's really easy to talk about. So I'm sure they're going to lose like 4 guys before we start the next one. But Boston's one of the easier things to do. Are we good with Boston?
Yeah.
Okay, well, guess what? Toronto's not one of the easiest things to do. The Toronto Raptors are 9-point dogs in Chicago, 213 total. At least 4 guys that I've projected in for Toronto aren't in the FanDuel salary sheet. 2 of them for DraftKings aren't. Here's everybody that's not available for the Toronto Raptors. This is hysterical in that we got no Fred VanVleet, no Gary Trent, no Scotty Barnes, no Pascal Siakam, no Precious Achiuwa. All of these guys who are basically their starters are out. Now, finally, after OG Anunoby was out forever, he is the lone guy left that can play. Banton, Dragic, Malachi Flynn, David Johnson, Champagnie, all out. Kem Birch is evidently questionable. He said that he wasn't going to play on Saturday, and if he's that quick to say that, I'm going to assume that he's not playing today, but who the hell knows right now? They have signed DJ Wilson, Brandon Goodwin, Sauce Castillo, and Juwan Morgan. So we've got bodies here for Toronto, kind of. That tweet from Blake Murphy is hysterical when you see what they've got going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So they've got 10 guys even without Kem Birch. 4 of them weren't on the team 2 days ago. That's always good. Let's start with the obvious here. Yuta Watanabe, Svi Mikhailiuk, Chris Boucher. I think these guys are all playing 30-plus minutes if they can. Exceptional plays. Don't really know how to talk about them as anything other than guys you have to have a lot of.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I mean, going back to the start of last year, without Lowry, VanVleet, or Siakam on the floor, you actually get decent samples. 318 minutes for Watanabe, 0.86 DraftKings points per minute. Chris Boucher, 352 minutes, 1.09 DraftKings points per minute. Svi Mikhailiuk's played 162 minutes at 0.74 DraftKings points per minute. So like, other than Boucher, you're still not expecting really high levels of production from Watanabe or Mikhailiuk, but they are likely to play a ton of minutes.
Yeah, I see those 3 guys. Kem Birch being in would complicate matters a little bit for Boucher, but I still think he's going to be out there a shit ton, and I want to take my chances on him. But those 3 guys, just because they're normally guys that play, I assume are the guys that are going to be playing 30-plus minutes.
Raptors Bulls at risk for postponement Wednesday.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I could have told you that. We're working through it right now.
Yeah. The only reason I mentioned it was because typically when that's been, we haven't been getting big gaps recently between at risk and postponed.
Right. Okay. Anunoby, 7,200 on FanDuel, 7,900 on DraftKings. I like him, but he's significantly closer to appropriately priced than like some sort of bargain.
I think it partly depends on how eager Nick Nurse is to try and kill him. I mean, if he plays like 36 minutes, I'm not that excited. If he plays 44, he looks pretty good. And knowing Nick Nurse's tendencies, I don't know that that's out of the question, but he's actually played 206 minutes since last year without Lowry, VanVleet, or Siakam. He's only averaged 0.82 DraftKings points per minute, but he has a 25% usage rate. We saw the big usage bump earlier this year for him as well when Siakam was out. So I think he plays a really big role offensively here, and we've seen him be pretty good at that this season. It really comes down to how many minutes does he end up playing. If it's only 35 or 36, I still think it's kind of tough to get to him.
I gave him 32. He played 28 in his return on the 18th. He missed a ton of time. There's no incentive for them to run. Like, I don't think that Nick Nurse is going to play OG Anunoby 36 plus minutes with no other real NBA players today. By the way, here's the quote from Mark Stein. At risk of postponement because some of Toronto's emergency signees from the G League showcase in Vegas might have to go right into the health and safety protocols.
This is such a mess. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'm unless we get some sort of like optimistic quote, if I don't win a tournament because OG Anunoby plays 48 minutes tonight, then oh well.
Yeah, I'm not going to be there for it. We have him projected for 27% ownership on FanDuel at 7,200. Like, I can't get behind that. I'm willing to dodge it. Who starts at point guard for the Toronto Raptors today? I'll give you a hint. You have some options. It could be Tremont Waters, who isn't in the FanDuel salary pool. Brandon Goodwin, who isn't on DraftKings as of this moment, or at least wasn't when I pulled salary files earlier today. I gave them both 24 minutes because I don't have a damn clue who it's going to be.
I mean, my answer was going to be OG Anunoby.
That's great. Great. Even better. I mean, somebody's got to be the fifth starter with Watanabe, Mikhailuk, Anunoby, and
Isak Bonga.
Sure, that's the option. And I don't know, Nick Castillo. Yeah, I almost said Nick Castillo. Sauce Castillo, a.k.a. Nick Stauskas, also available. Not on FanDuel or DraftKings as of this current moment, or at least wasn't earlier.
But yeah, I mean, I most likely like Goodwin.
Ooh, Ken Birch out. Thank God. I didn't need that Q tag if this game was going to exist.
Yeah, probably like Goodwin or Waters, but I mean, it's not like it would be shocking if it was just like OG, Mikhailuk, Bonga, Watanabe, Boucher.
Yeah, something like that. Who can't you roster for Toronto today? Juwan Morgan and DJ Wilson, I guess. Maybe.
DJ Wilson puts up some fantasy points when he plays.
Certainly does. I have him at 17 right now in 18 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Juwan Morgan, barring starting, I don't think I get to Juwan Morgan. I doubt that on the slate I get to DJ Wilson.
Yeah.
I doubt that I get to whoever's not starting between Waters and Goodwin. Or either of them. Like if either's starting.
Tremont Waters is like a fantasy point per minute guy. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not like advocating for it or anything, but
my biggest issue with going to non-starters from Toronto is that they do still have, at least as of right now, they still have bodies. So it's not like you're looking at the guys on the bench and saying, oh, well, I mean, they still have to play 26 plus minutes. You're taking on some pretty big risks where like they can still pay off well for sure. But, going to the bench here, you're taking on some pretty big risks that you're just playing like 18 minutes of somebody at 3K, honestly, where there's like 100 guys that are going to play 30 minutes.
It's possible that we just lose one of Goodwin and Waters and someone else, and they just have like 8 guys. So we'll see that too. That might make it a little bit easier. Yeah. Stephen Leibowitz said the Raptors will sign OC Anunoby, OD Anunoby, OE Anunoby. That's a good joke. I like that. This is going to be the hardest thing that we do.
I agree with this take too about I don't think the Birch being out announcement was coincidental. Like if they're talking about postponing this game, just get Birch being questionable off the injury report. Make it clear that that's one less body you have.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. This one's fascinating. Fascinating. There's nothing else that we can say right now about this game, and it might not even happen. So we're going to move it over to the Chicago side. It's not better over here. Alex Caruso out, Derek Jones out, Devin Dotson out. Zach LaVine, doubtful. Dosunmu, doubtful. Alize Johnson, doubtful. Matt Thomas, doubtful. Troy Brown, questionable. They have signed Ersan Ilyasova and Mac McClung. So as we look at Chicago, clearly, I mean, the prices are crazy. DeMar DeRozan is now $10,200 on DK and only a power forward. He's $100 more expensive than Vooch at 10-1. Those guys are like 88 and 8,900 on FanDuel. Ball, DeRozan, Vooch. If you get to them, great. That's all fine. These guys are going to be playing legitimate minutes. Kobe White is 4,100 on DraftKings, projected for 35% ownership. I think he is very clearly the best option you're going to find on the DraftKings side from a value perspective, on the Bulls, that is. Javonte Green, Alfonso McKinney, probably the next two guys up. What are you doing with Chicago if this game happens?
I'm with you. Kobe White pretty clearly looks like the best option. He played 32 minutes last game. He started the second half with Caruso out. The 32 minutes is big just because it confirms that there's no like minutes restriction on him. He's good to go. His production's been down a bit this year, but I mean, taking a lot of these guys off the floor, Levine being unlikely to play, he's still going to get some shots up. He's still going to look like a pretty good option. So 4,100 for Kobe White looks really, really good. Outside of that, I don't really see a ton. I mean, any of Lonzo, Vooch, DeRozan certainly have ceilings, but they're also priced up. Javonte Green's priced up enough to where I don't anticipate getting to a lot of him at 4,300. Right now, I think it's pretty much Kobe White.
Okay. Yeah. Lonzo, $8K on FanDuel, $800 cheaper. DeRozan, $8,900 on FanDuel. Shooting guard, small forward, and $1,300 cheaper. Vooch, $1,300 cheaper. You're just going to get to a lot more of Chicago on FanDuel than you will on DraftKings today. Keep your eye out, folks, because, we don't know if this game's going to even happen. Anything else here in this one? Oh, no.
No. Somebody asked, as far as payouts without any problems, DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo has never had an issue with any of them.
They're all equally good and the same and reputable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot more experience with DraftKings and Yahoo than FanDuel, but there's no real reason to question it.
I have a lot of experience with FanDuel, and I have never had a single issue with getting immediate money from FanDuel. I wouldn't look at anything like that.
And I mean, even the PayPal thing, like, DraftKings goes to PayPal, but you don't have to. You can, you can have them send you a check if you are withdrawing more than, I think it's like 20K. You can get a bank wire. It's all easy.
Yeah, I've had no issues on FanDuel. It's been very easy. All right, let's keep moving. Let's talk about our presenting sponsor on this show. That would be Prize Picks. And you guys don't have to worry. This is going to be a lot different. You're basically building parlay cards. You're looking for over-unders here. We've got free tools on the website that can help you out. Our free NBA Prize Picks prop tool give you the best decisions, or help you make the best decisions that you can make. You can get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. $100 instant match deposit bonus when you use the promo code Awesemo. You can make a 5-player card to get up to 10x your entry fee. I'm going to hit Adam with a couple of my favorite fantasy score over-unders for today. Let's go right to one of the most interesting pieces of this slate. Over under 31 fantasy points for Kevin Love.
Over.
Same. I like the over there as well. So that's how much I actually like it. OG Anunoby. Over under 34 fantasy points.
I'll take the under.
Yeah, I would as well. And then we can say, how about this one? Over under 32 for Chris Boucher.
Over.
Final one. A guy that you and I are probably going to end up over the field on. How many fantasy points for Robert Williams? What do you want to do at 29?
I'm going to do what? Why am I ending up over the field on Robert Williams?
I don't know. We did it on Monday when I think it was Monday.
True. Yeah, I guess with Horford out, he does end up looking better. What was the number?
29.
Seems about right. Okay. I guess I would take the over.
Yeah. Just looking at it, 3% owned Robert Williams is just the kind of guy that ends up in 25% of our lineups when we talk at 7:30.
Yeah. Once I thought about it, you're probably right at 3%.
Yeah. All right. I don't have much else here for Prize Picks. Download the app in the App Store, Google Play, or go to prizepicks.com. But really, use the links in the description of this video to sign up, because a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum and a $100 first match deposit bonus. You don't want to sleep on it. To Houston we go. This one is a little bit easier to talk about. This is probably one of the easiest games that we can handle today. On the Houston side, once I get to it, still no Kevin Porter, no Jalen Green, Q-tag on Christian Wood. And then we don't know if Eric Gordon is going to be playing this back-to-back, whether he's sitting the first game or the second game. I have him in for right now. Highest owned player for Houston on DraftKings is 4% owned Jayshawn Tate. Tate gets to 14 on FanDuel. Christian Wood is at 9. That should be a little bit higher if he stops being questionable, but there is not a lot you want to get to on Houston today.
Yeah, I see essentially nothing on DraftKings.
Yeah,
looking, so like in their last game against Chicago, there were like 3.5 minutes of garbage time. So keep that in mind. But the only player who exceeded 30 minutes was Armani Brooks, played 32. You had Christian Wood at 29, Gordon at 27, Tate at 22, Matthews at 26, Şengün at 19. I mean, on a slate like this, I don't really see anything.
Yeah, I don't have much to say here. I like Christian Wood more than the 9% on FanDuel where he's 8,200, but I do that basically every single time that we play. So I'm going to go right through Houston into Milwaukee. This one's pretty obvious as well. On the Bucks side, we have no Giannis, no Portis, no DiVincenzo, no Brook Lopez, but Middleton, Wes Matthews, and Rodney Hood all available. Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton are projected for ownership. I like them more than what we got him at. So we've got Drew Holiday projected for 16% ownership across both sites. He's 9,600 and 9,400. That's a big price tag. Middleton is projected for 30 and 25% ownership at 7,700 on FanDuel, 8,300 on DraftKings. Let's start here. How are you going to manage this Bucks team? We know how big of a boost Holiday and Middleton get with no Giannis, no Portis on the floor. Is the price tag a problem for you for Drew today?
It's not ideal. I think you can still get to him at 9,400. Like I'd rather play $9,400 Drew here than $9,700 Garland. So I think that we have kind of seen a tendency on a lot of these mid-range guys for their prices to really get jacked up. You know, like Lonzo's at 8,800, Vooch and DeRozan both over 10K. Relative to those guys, it makes 9,400 for Holiday in the spot still look pretty good, but certainly not expecting to get as much as I have in recent games.
Okay. Yeah, I like him if these ownership numbers do stay low, just because the matchup against Houston, pace up, bad defense, it bumps them up even more for me.
Yep.
The real question is, how many minutes do we think that Chris Middleton plays today?
33.
Okay. Missed the last 3 games. I don't know if this is the spot that they're trying to play him a ton, but I gave him 34.
Yeah.
I love him at 25 or 30% ownership, and I want to be over those marks.
Yeah, my assumption is somewhere in that range.
Okay.
And yeah, I think he looks pretty good at 8,300.
What do we do here then with the rest of this team? Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton, these guys are going to play 30 minutes. Connaughton, probably too expensive for it. Grayson Allen, probably okay-ish. What do we do with Boogie? 4,400. We have him projected for 40% ownership. That seems high.
I really like him here. The big takeaway from last game.
By the way, I like him as well.
Yeah, I mean, the big takeaway from last game, you know, obviously they benched pretty much all of their guys, but Boogie played 27.2 minutes and that game ended up not being competitive, or he may have played even a little bit more. The fact that he's physically able to play that many minutes makes me really want to get to him at a cheap price tag. You still don't have Portis, you still don't have Giannis, so it's a pretty shorthanded front court. There's just no real reason to think that he's limited to 18 or 20 minutes or anything. I mean, that question was pretty much answered. So I think that he just looks great. Like, I think he's the best play on Milwaukee easily.
Ooh, I aggressively disagree with that. How many minutes do you think DeMarcus Cousins is playing today?
24, 25. Could be more.
Does he have to?
I mean, no.
I mean, we saw Mamu play 42 minutes their last time out.
So
I just don't know if we have to get Cousins for anything more than 24 minutes at this point. With Thanasis back, with Jordan Nwora available against a Houston team, I could see this being a first quarter rotation, a second quarter rotation, a third quarter rotation, and nothing else for Cousins. I'm very nervous about that spot. Clearly a good point per dollar play. I don't like it at all at that ownership or in GPPs.
Yeah,
I don't think he has to. Like, I think that Mamu can play more minutes than Cousins today.
Yeah, I'm not particularly concerned about it. Assuming Cousins starts, I'm expecting, if this game's competitive, I think you're getting like pretty normal minutes from Cousins. The fact that they started him last game,
he's only played 27 minutes. He's only broken 20 minutes once. What's normal for him?
I didn't say normal for Cousins. I meant like upper 20s. Like if this game's competitive down to the end, I think Cousins is playing a lot of minutes.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Like
I
they
don't
didn't have
see it
they
here.
didn't have to play him last game. They chose to. They didn't limit him at all. They played him 27 minutes. He might have played more if that game had been competitive at the end. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not assuming he starts. I'm not viewing this as like Cousins being limited anymore.
I think we get less than the full 48 from Cousins and Mamu, and I don't really trust a ton of it. Like, I don't want Mamu. I don't really want Jordan Warren now that Middleton's back, or Thanasis or anything like that. But that's a lot of hope on Cousins. And I think I have him projected really well. 1.3 fantasy points per minute on FanDuel, something comparable on DraftKings. Like, I think I'm even heavy on him.
I'm pretty optimistic after the last game. I mean, the game against the Pelicans, he only played 16 minutes. He was also in foul trouble. He picked up 2 fouls in his first 3 minutes and 20 seconds, picked up his third foul with 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. That was, also a game where we hadn't seen him, play more than like 18 to 20 minutes. So the foul trouble combined with the fact that then on the second half of a back-to-back, they rested a bunch of their guys, did not rest Cousins, and then played him like 28 minutes. I'm pretty optimistic.
One I'm going to really pay attention to. I don't know. Something about this like aggressive center chalk of Love and Cousins that's really concerning me, because I just think that there are a lot of options out there tonight.
The only argument that I could make against Cousins, and I mean, it kind of has to do with what you're saying too. Like, the ownership is high, but also he's only a center on DraftKings. We haven't talked about it yet, but you have Jokic. So on a slate with a ton of value, that's kind of taking up one center spot. So it then kind of comes down to like, do I really want to be giving 40% of the rest of my spots to Cousins, or do I want to mix it up with some other, lower owned high upside guys? So like, I think in that sense, it makes sense. And I agree that there is still some volatility here where the game could blow out. Cousins can get in foul trouble. I could be wrong. And he just, they go back to playing him like 22 minutes. Any of those things could happen. I don't think it's particularly likely that their plan is to limit him, but it wouldn't be the first time that I was wrong.
I'm very intrigued by this spot again. It's another one that I want to pay close attention to throughout the day. Anybody else we want to touch on here from Milwaukee?
No, I think that covers it.
Now we can talk about the actual best center option for today. 5.5-point favorite Denver Nuggets in Oklahoma City. Nikola Jokic is 11-4 on FanDuel, 12-6 on DraftKings, and still projected for 35 to 40% ownership. This is a guy I want a lot of. I have him massively projected higher than every single other play on this slate by quite a bit. How are you handling Nikola Jokic?
Kind of just alluded to it in the last game, but I assume I'm just getting him pretty much everywhere. There's no shortage of value on this slate. The slate's also kind of different than some of the other recent ones we've seen, where we've seen slates where like there's 7 to 8K guys that have 50 plus, easy 50 plus fantasy point upside. And so it sort of makes going to somebody like Jokic in some respects unnecessary, because you can build really, really high upside lineups in the mid-range. But on this slate, for the most part, they've priced up those mid-range guys on most teams. And so it's made it so Jokic looks better again. So you have some really cheap plays, and then you have Jokic at the top. I anticipate just getting to a ton of Jokic. I think he's going to be really popular too for that reason.
Abel Ramos with the super chat made a deposit and did the Xmas promo code for Yahoo, and wanted to know if he gets a free premium month of Awesemo Plus. Just email support@awesemo.com. I have no idea. I don't know what any of the things are like that. So our support email address will get you set up. Jeremy Savage says, don't play Cousins. So I like Cousins now. I've changed my mind. He's a good play. Yeah, Jordan, thanks for hitting that exclamation point support thingy. That'll help out. But thank you for that super chat, Abel. Appreciate it. Rest of Denver's pretty easy. Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, if you want to get a little bit of those guys. Aaron Gordon is questionable today. There aren't really like a ton of priorities here for me for Denver, other than the fact that it's obviously a nice spot taking on OKC.
Yeah, nothing else really stands out. Pretty much the case whenever Jokic is in. As long as other guys aren't missing, there's not a lot to see. Bones Highland is kind of interesting. He benefited last game, played a few extra minutes because of Jokic's foul trouble early in the third quarter. He subbed in, but he's also just someone that it makes sense for Denver to try and get him more minutes going forward. Malone sort of talked about needing, to kind of let Highland do his thing and make plays. So not the worst flyer type play at 3,800, but also kind of completely unnecessary on this slate.
God, Jokic is just so crazy in comparison to everybody else.
Yep.
He's like 0.2 of a fantasy point per minute higher than everybody else over the past 30 days. That's hard to do.
And this slate kind of just sets up in a way that is just like perfect for him because you don't have Giannis, you don't have LeBron without Davis. You don't have the Harden Durant pieces. Like there's nobody even comparable at the top.
No,
but then looking at the mid-range guys, like Jon Collins looks fantastic. But like even Middleton and Holiday are priced up a little bit. The Bulls guys are priced up. You have the Kings that are starting to get priced up. They still look okay, but it's so easy to get to Jokic here, and he looks so good.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Decent matchup too for him against OKC.
Yeah, not bad.
Speaking of OKC, they've got everybody in, which means that the highest owned guy on Oklahoma City on DraftKings is Lou Dort at 8.7%. You can get to a little bit more Shea or Giddey on FanDuel, but Giddey finally up to 7K on FanDuel. Could pretty much ignore Oklahoma City.
Yeah, pretty much. Somebody said, I feel like with Jokic, you can only get me 39. I'm assuming they mean in the first
real
half.
Points?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. That's typically what he's been doing by halftime. As far as
20 fantasy points lower than what I have his median for today. That's a median projection again for those that don't understand what median means.
Yeah, as far as OKC goes, though, I don't see much of anything here. They're running deep rotations. They don't have great fantasy options. The ones that are pretty good are also expensive. Gilgeous-Alexander at 9,500. Giddey at 7,800. I mean, Giddey is coming off of a really big game, but it's not a particularly appealing matchup against Denver. Only a 104 implied total here. I'm not counting on Giddey to have another career game just because he did last time.
So the only thing that I want to touch on here, and it's not like we talk about it like this, but does the fact that this game seems like it should be competitive matter to you? Could we like sneakily be sleeping on this game?
On the Denver game?
Yeah, Denver's a 5.5 point favorite, but it's in OKC. That's one of the better lines. Like the other lines in this one are like Cleveland's 5.5, the Clippers are 5.5. Are we like if this game just happens to be competitive, are we sleeping on it?
I don't really think so because I'm going to project it to be competitive.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
I talked about it in the sense that I assume it's going to be competitive.
Right.
And it just a bunch of guys from Denver look decent. Jokic looks fantastic. A bunch of guys from OKC look bad. But like that's assuming they get their full minutes.
I'm intrigued by it. I feel like Oklahoma City is going to end up having like 2 or 3 guys in the optimal lineup in some stupid way tonight. Trey Mann questionable tonight. Not that that should matter at all. You ready to close this one out?
Yeah.
LA Clippers, 5.5 point favorites in Sacramento. For the Clippers, this one's easy. The Clippers are basically what they've been. I didn't really have to change their rotations. Paul George is in. Marcus Morris still out. Hartenstein still out. That's really all that matters in this regard. Paul George, 9,200 on FanDuel. I think that looks really good. Everybody else in this game is kind of tricky depending on which site you're playing on. Reggie Jackson getting a little bit of love on FanDuel. Paul George and Zubats getting a little love on DraftKings. Do you see any priorities here? Because it's a great spot against Sacramento.
It's a really good spot. It's just a really difficult team to get to because George was out for so long. I think the front court is the most appealing to me. Zubats played 27 minutes last game. You got 22 from Ibaka. So I think that kind of going back to that pairing, Zubats on DraftKings is only 5,300. Ibaka is still only 3,200 with power forward eligibility. Those two guys both look pretty interesting, especially if the ownership's going to be low. If they're getting ownership, then I'll go to some other spots. But I'm interested there. Outside of that, I have trouble getting to the rest of it.
Yeah, it's not. You want it to look better, and you want this as the good late night hammer. But one game at 10 o'clock makes this kind of difficult, and we might lose another game, so it's going to take on like a little bit more importance, which is also scary.
Yeah, I mean, Terrence Mann at 5,600 in this spot, if he's going to keep playing 35, 36 minutes, is okay. But I still just think there's a lot of better options.
For Sacramento, some of it's really easy. Some of it's a little bit more difficult. We've got a Q tag again on Rashawn Holmes. I have to assume that he is close to coming back if they're going to continually list him as questionable and not just straight out. So I actually have him in here. Halliburton, Heald, Barnes, all like 20% owned or so, depending on which site you're looking at. Metu on DraftKings at 5,800, also around 20% owned. We're just jamming Halliburton, Heald, Barnes, and maybe not jamming is not the right word, but like Halliburton, Heald, Barnes, and Metu are all very good plays today.
Yeah, but I So the ownership's come down, which is nice. Hield right now projected for 18%, Barnes at 11, Halliburton at 21. Halliburton's still far and away my favorite. He's just getting a ridiculous amount of assist opportunities. His usage rate is up as well. Hield and Barnes, you and I kind of had that discussion the other day. They look good, but I've been having trouble getting them to project as well as other people think they do. And that typically just means that they're going to come in with more ownership than I get to. They look fine. 7,100, 6,900 are both reasonable price tags. Metu at 5,800. He played 32 minutes 2 games ago. He played 34 last game. He had played, I think, 36 3 games ago. So expecting him in that low to mid 30s range makes sense. It makes him still look like a reasonable option at 5,800.
Yeah. I think they're all like appropriately owned and appropriately priced right now on the slate that might have 5 games in an hour. If Holmes plays, I have a little bit of interest, but nothing too crazy. I'm more interested in going to someone like Tristan Thompson if Holmes ends up being out.
Yeah, I was going to say Tristan Thompson is the same price as DeMarcus Cousins, and we might not have the Holmes news by the time the Cousins game starts. So, or I guess we probably won't have the Holmes news before the slate starts. We may have it by the time the Cousins game starts, which would give you an opportunity to just get a very similar play at lower ownership if Holmes is out.
Anything else here for the Sacramento game?
No, I think we've pretty much seen this play out several times now. Just to reiterate, I don't think it can really be understated how big of a role Tyrese Halliburton's playing and how well he's playing.
Yeah, a huge fan. I got him at 1.13 FanDuel points per minute right now, and I might even be a little low. This is a really hard game being on an island 2 hours after everything else. You can, oh man, it's just going to be tough. The Holmes swap. I mean, if I'm building a lineup and I have Rashawn Holmes, I'm going to force one guy in addition in this game into that lineup so that I can at least move around a little bit if he ends up getting the axe. But other than that, I don't really have too much to worry about.
I don't even know if I'm doing that.
Actually, you could do a straight swap to Zubats if you want and not really lose out on too much.
Yeah, like you can do it to Zubats, you can do it to Thompson. It's not ideal, but the reason I say I don't know if I'm going to do that is there's no other glaring values here. I think all of Metu, Hield, Barnes, Halliburton are good plays, but I don't really want to just be unnecessarily forcing those guys into lineups. There's only a couple of guys I like on the Clippers, and they're both centers. So, or I guess Ibaka's a power forward, but I'm not looking to force them into more lineups just to maybe swap anyway. So I probably I don't think I'm going to get to a lot of Holmes anyway on this slate. There's value centers. There's Jokic taking up probably 150 of my 150 center spots. So I don't think I'm going to get to a lot of Holmes anyway. And where I do, I'll just swap to Zubats and Thompson.
Alrighty. Injury video in a bit, GPP videos in a bit, deeper dive in a bit.
Yep.
There it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Buckle up for tomorrow. We've already lost one game off of what was a 12-game slate. We might lose one today off of what is a 6-game slate. So make sure you're following at Awesemo NBA, following us on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS, at Josh Engelman, just in case you want to see any updates from us. And we're going to have a ton of content through the day. Don't skip out on the deeper dive and live before lock, guys. You don't want to miss it. There's going to be a ton of news. It's a big one. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, Prize Picks.